Hey there, welcome to episode 130 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is some of my new Marvel Legends figures. And the reason I'm going to talk about them is because I have a lot of them and I want to put them away. Basically, the way this works is when I get a new toy, I take photos for Instagram and I do a video to show you guys what I got, and then I put it away on the shelf. And when I'm all caught up with showing you my new stuff, then I can focus on kind of more specific videos, like showing you a G.I. Joe convention box set from a couple years ago, or maybe, reviewing, doing a top 10 list of my favorite Transformers of the 90s or something like that. The problem is I just have so much new stuff coming in, I very rarely get caught up. And right now I'm very much behind. That's one of the reasons this video might look different from what you're used to if you watch my videos regularly. Normally, I sit on a little chair here in the corner, so I've got a kind of a different backdrop. But I've got so much shit piled up everywhere right now. I'm glad you can't see the floor because my room looks like a complete dump. The chair that I'm sitting in, that I usually sit in, is covered in toys that need to be either reviewed or photographed or put away. My desk that I work from, where I shoot my toys and do my Instagram, I literally have just enough space for the camera so that you don't see the chaos just off screen. There's stuff everywhere. So yeah, I really need to do a major cleanup in here. The problem is when I fall behind on my videos, I feel I can't clean up because I don't want to put this stuff away and forget to show you guys. So I do have some random odds and ends that I still want to show you. I originally sat down and I thought, well, maybe I'll just do another little catch-all video and I'll show you a couple of Transformers and a couple of reaction figures and whatever else. But as I was kind of compiling what I've got to review, I realized I've got over 20 Marvel Legends that I haven't showed you yet. So this video here is going to be my Marvel Legends catch-all video. This is going to include figures from multiple different waves. Some of the figures are, several months old. Some of them are brand new. I've acquired these over the last probably, let's say 3 months. I'm going to try and set a rule to only talk about each figure for 2 minutes or so max, so we can move this thing along pretty quickly. So yeah, let's dive into it. So the first figure I want to talk about is SpiderGwen, and this is the character based on her appearance from the CG animated Into the Spider-Verse movie that came out in, 2019, I guess, probably. So yeah, this figure was part of a wave, and the Build-A-Figure was Stilt-Man. Now, I really wanted the Build-A-Figure Stilt-Man. The only problem was this was one of the waves where I really didn't want very many of the figures that I needed to buy in order to build Stilt-Man. The only figure I really wanted from this whole wave was Frogman. And I got Frogman, and that gave me a piece of, I think maybe one of the arms of Stilt-Man. But the wave was primarily made up of these characters from Into the Spider-Verse. Now, I enjoyed Into the Spider-Verse just fine, but I already had Marvel Legends of all of those characters, and I had toys that were based on their comic book look, which I prefer. I didn't really like the stylized animation of Into the Spider-Verse, at least not for my toy collection, because they wouldn't really blend in with the collection that I've built. So I got Frogman, but I eventually thought I'm going to have to try and find a way to get the rest of the Stilt-Man parts. And I thought I would start by buying Gwen here. So it's a really nice figure for starters. So if you look at that head sculpt, that's a great head sculpt. And otherwise, the figure's pretty solid throughout. Now, because I wanted to talk pretty quickly on all of these figures, I'm not going to go into articulation. If you're watching this video, you know what Marvel Legends can do. She's got double jointed knees. She's got single jointed elbows. Some of the characters I'm going to cover will probably have double jointed elbows or single jointed knees, but they move really well. They've got rocker ankles, back and forth ankles. They get swivel on the leg. Lots of movement on the arms. The head can do full 360s. So what articulation's like. I'm not going to talk about it anymore for the rest of the figures. That will allow me to move pretty quick. So anyway, I think this is a great looking Gwen figure. So I didn't really mind having to buy it. Although she is a relatively new character. She hasn't been around all that long in the Marvel Universe. Now, maybe if you're a young kid, like, I don't know how long she's been around. Maybe 6 years or something. That might seem like a long time. But for somebody that's been collecting comic books since the 80s, it feels like just a quick blip. So she still feels relatively new to me. And I already have this SpiderGwen figure, which I think is a pretty good figure. And you can see very similar to this one here, which is part of the reason why I didn't necessarily feel the need to upgrade. Plus, I also had to buy this Gwen figure where she's got kind of a symbiote venom thing going on here. You can see she's got this weird tongue attached to her hoodie. And this was a figure that, while it's cool, I didn't really want. It's not a figure I would have bought, but I had to buy it because I was in a situation where I wanted to build a figure parts. I think it was the Venom Pool wave. So I had to buy this Gwen. So I already had 2 Gwens, which I thought was plenty. I didn't really want to get this one, but because it was such a nice figure, and I especially like the unmasked head. This one comes with an unmasked head as well, but the head is much more traditional Gwen with the straight hair and the headband. So this is quite a bit different. This is a much more like kind of contemporary and hip look with the shaved hair and the, just the long hair on one side and everything. I think it looks really good. So I'm going to display this figure on my shelf unmasked, since I have this one masked. And, I think they're different enough that it feels, justifiable to have them on the shelf. Now, she came with a really cool accessory. She came with Spider-Ham, the Spider Pig. And again, this one's based off his look from the Into the Spider-Verse movie. So he's only got one point of articulation, which is his head moves around like a full 360, but his body is otherwise just one big sculpted piece. He stands up okay, but his balance is a little off because he has such a big head, and especially if you start making him look in different directions, I find that makes him a little more topsy-turvy. So that was a cool add-on, but again, I already had a Spider-Ham figure that came out a couple of years ago, and I really like this one. This is much more true to how Spider-Ham looked in the comic books, so I prefer this look overall. So again, I didn't really need that one, but it is what it is. And I'll just show you her other accessories. I've already gone over my 2 minutes, I know, but so here's her masked head. So it's pretty nice. I like the paintwork on it, and it is different enough from this head that even if I chose to display my new Gwen with the hood, they still look pretty different, and I think I do prefer this one. And then the last thing she came with is a couple of like web shooter hands. So overall, a pretty cool figure, and I didn't mind adding her to my collection. So let's take a look at another figure from the Stilt-Man wave. So this is the Prowler, and the Prowler also appeared into the Spider-Verse cartoon, and he's also stylized, but you can't tell as much because he's a masked character, so I think that works a little bit better. I think with characters like Gwen, where you can see their face, you can kind of see that unique animation style a little bit more, but with this guy, he blends in pretty well with any other figure that's not based on the animation. However, I didn't really need this Prowler because as a fan of the comic books, I already had this comic book Prowler. And, I thought this is a much, better figure. This looks like the Prowler that I know and grew up with. And it's a pretty great figure. So since I already had this guy, wasn't feeling super compelled to get him. However, I bought him and Gwen at the same time. I was kind of slowly picking at that wave of figures. And I thought, well, I like the Gwen figure because of the head sculpt. And Prowler I can justify because even though these are both Prowler, they're actually different characters. In the main Marvel Universe, the Prowler is a character named Hobby Brown. And then in the Ultimate Universe, which is where this guy comes from, or the Miles Morales universe, if you've seen the movie, you're aware that Prowler is actually Miles' uncle. Which is not Hobby Brown. It's Uncle Aaron. I can't remember his last name right now, but anyway. So yeah, totally different characters. There's a little bit of a hiccup in that way, in that Miles Morales used to be in a whole separate universe from Peter Parker, so they could make changes like that, and you could put interesting spins on established characters. But then after a couple of years of that, they mashed the two universes together, and it kind of made for some confusing things, because the characters don't remember that there were two separate universes, so now we're just supposed to acknowledge that I guess there was always two different guys that were called the Prowler, and yeah, so it's just one of those hiccups that I don't think they've ever really addressed.
But anyway, so this is a different character than him. It's a cool looking figure. Like, I like this design of the hood with the points behind it. I like his gloves. They kind of look like what you'd expect to see on the Shocker. But, like, his gauntlets are pretty cool. The boots, there's some nice detail in there. And yeah, it's a different enough design that, you know, it feels a little more justified. I'm actually glad this guy looks so different from this guy. Like, they have the same kind of symbol on their chest, but if this guy was in the same green, you know, it would start to feel like, well, I kind of wasted my money getting the same figure and over again. So these are different enough, and it's a really solid figure. So, yeah, pretty cool. I think the only accessory that he came with was this suitcase full of money. So you can snap that shut, and then he was just carrying on to it. So that's a pretty cool accessory to have, even if you don't use it for Prowler. It's just a kind of a neat little thing to have in any of your Marvel Legends displays, or even if you want to use it with some other toy line. Just a neat little case of money. So there you go. There's the Prowler. Okay, so let's talk about the next figure in the Spider-Verse line of Marvel Legends. So at this point, I now had Frogman, and I had SpiderGwen, and I had Prowler. So I had 3 parts, and I needed 3 more. So the last 3 characters were Peter Parker, or Peter B. Parker, I think they specify. Then there was also Miles Morales, and the last one was the Hand Ninja. Now, of the 3 of them, I didn't really mind getting the Hand Ninja, because even though he's kind of a, like, you know, he's a generic army builder character, he's not anybody that has a personality. I never really cared for the Hand Ninjas. They're kind of plain looking, kind of standard red ninjas. But yeah, if I bought one, fine. But with Peter and Miles, again, they were very cartoony looking, and I didn't think they blended in with my other toys, so I really didn't want to buy them. So I was searching on eBay and on Facebook groups, and I was trying to see if there was anybody online that had the Build-A-Figure parts that they would sell me for a good price, so I didn't have to buy these figures. Now, I actually found somebody that had the kind of metallic hood that belongs to Stilt-Man, and that piece came with Miles Morales. Somebody sold me that piece, so I didn't buy Miles Morales. And then the Hand Ninja, because they're kind of army builders, they come with Stilt-Man's legs. And the neat thing about them, and I appreciate Hasbro doing this, is that they knew some people might want to army build the Hand Ninja. So by buying multiple Hand Ninjas, you could get extensions for Stilt-Man's legs, and you could just keep making him taller and taller the more Hand Ninjas you bought. However, I found a guy online that was selling just the legs, and I don't know if I actually would have bought 2 Hand Ninjas, because I didn't even really want one in the first place, but I did like the idea of a tall Stilt-Man. So I found a guy that was selling the legs, so I bought 2 sets of legs from him for a pretty good price. But I could not find anybody selling Stilt-Man's head. And Stilt-Man's head came with Peter B. Parker. So I had to bite the bullet and buy him. So this guy just showed up the other day. It was the last piece I needed, so I could finally complete my Stilt-Man. And yeah, here he is. So is it a bad figure? Not at all. I think this guy looks like really good. Like, it captures the animation look really well. However, I didn't need an action figure of this guy. Like, I have plenty of Spider-Man figures, and I even have a Peter Parker figure. But this guy here, like, this weird mix. Like, I know he was supposed to be kind of a schlub in the cartoon, but the mismatched shoes and then the Spider-Man costume underneath, it's just weird. Like, it's not something that I would need in my collection. Like, I think if I was a kid and if I played with my toys, that's kind of always where my mind goes. I think, what would I do with this figure? Like, is he going to be walking around like this with his Peter Parker face exposed and his Spider-Man costume kind of half showing? Like, why doesn't he pull his pant legs down? Why doesn't he take this jacket off? Like, it just sort of seems too scene specific, and I just don't really get it. I didn't need it in my collection. But Hasbro knows what they're doing, and they forced me to buy it so I could get my Build-A-Figure part. Now, so all that aside, like, it's a well-made figure, and he looks good. For accessories, he's got some, so you see he's got some Spider-Man web-spinning hands there, but he also does have some just kind of standard human hands. And this hand here is pretty cool. It comes with kind of a neat accessory in that he's got this open hand, and he's got this cup of, I don't know, that had coffee or booze or whatever, but he was carrying that around in the movie. So it's kind of a neat little thing to get. And he's also got an interchangeable head. So we'll pop that off. We'll pop this on. And there you go. So there's his head without the mask. And, he's got that 5 o'clock shadow, the kind of tousled hair like he just woke up. And yeah, he looks really good. Like, that really looks like it just stepped off of the screen. So, yeah, if your introduction to Spider-Man was into the Spider-Verse and this is how you think of Peter Parker, maybe you'll love this figure. Like, it's a well-made figure. It really captures the look of the source material. But, yeah, as a comic book fan, it's just not something I really needed. But anyway, there you go. So next up, let's take a look at the Build-A-Figure I've been talking about. This is Stilt-Man. So if you're not familiar with Stilt-Man, his name is pretty straightforward. He is a bad guy on stilts, and that's essentially it. He's got this armor, and he's got these stilts that can extend really high, so he can stomp along the street up amongst the skyscrapers, and he kind of figures that's a way he can get away from the cops. But of course, that doesn't work against guys like Spider-Man and Daredevil and other superheroes that fly around. So he's kind of a joke villain, and he's always getting beat up. So yeah, this is his legs. And now let's just pan up here. Try not to knock my tablet over. And there he is, way up there. My light is in the way. But you get the idea. He's quite tall. Like if I put him next to, let's say his, I guess we would call Daredevil his arch enemy. Let's just see if we can zoom out here a little bit. And yeah, you can see how tall Stilt-Man is when compared to Daredevil. And here's just a bit of a glimpse of the mess that I was talking about. The shit is everywhere. So there you go. Stilt-Man and Daredevil. Now, Stilt-Man is great. Let me just get him out of here. And I'll bring him down to earth a little bit. So here's the figure. So he's got like kind of a funny little smirk on his face. This is the kind of hood part that came with the Miles Morales figure, which is something that Stilt-Man has always had, this kind of backpack with the canopy over his head. So that's pretty neat. He had 2 sets of hands. The figures that the arms came with were packaged with fist hands and open hands. So I've got him displayed with 1 fist and 1 open hand so he can hold his pistol that he also came with. And yeah, it's a really great figure. I like this metallic paint job. And yeah, I love that these legs are so long. And even if you only had 1 set of legs, you can see the joint there. That's where it would have ended. So the legs aren't articulated other than the swivel where you attach extra legs. But he still would have been pretty tall just at that point. So each set of legs you get, they come with these feet. So I just had to snap the feet off of the 1 set of legs. And then the last set of legs that I snapped onto them, they retain the feet on the bottom. And you can see they get these peg holes. And he actually stands up pretty good, as you were noticing. But he does come with these display pieces here as well that have got some pegs on them. So if you're worried about him getting too tall, like let's just say I bought another set of legs or another hand ninja with some leg pieces, he might get too tall that he would topple over. So these wide display bases would help you with that. So overall, I'm very pleased with Stilt-Man. I think he's awesome. So this next figure is kind of an oddity. It wasn't really part of any particular wave. I think it was maybe a Walmart store exclusive. But this is Venomized Captain America. So basically Captain America after he's been merged with a Venom symbiote. So yeah, he's pretty cool. Now this is a figure I don't really feel I needed in my collection. Like I think, when characters get Venomized, it's cool. And I do have a few of these characters in my collection. The problem is I already have so many Venoms and so many other symbiotes that it starts to get a little crowded on the shelf. Like with that Gwen symbiote character that I showed you just a while ago. I also have a Miles like that. I have a Peter Parker like that. I have a Superior Spider-Man like that. So there's a lot of these Venomized characters in my collection. And I think it's kind of neat, but I do worry about where do I draw the line? Is this going to be a complete cash grab? Are they going to make Venomized Daredevil, Venomized Iron Man, Venomized, Blade, and then I'm just going to be buying dozens and dozens of figures, and they all just kind of look like Venom. like at a glance, this just kind of looks like Venom to me. Like, sure, if you get up close, you can see he's got kind of this, there's some blue spots, but it's mostly kind of black here. He's got the star on his chest, but even that's almost not immediately recognizable because it's kind of the weird, it's not like a solid star shape. It's kind of all like oozing in at the sides. You know, he's got the Captain America A on the head, but that almost gets lost a little bit in the eyes and some of these other designs here. The shield is kind of cool. It's got this kind of extra bit stuck onto it that might even be removable, but I haven't tried. And then you can see he's got like the Captain America military boots and stuff on there. But yeah, just at a glance, I think people are going to see this on my shelf and just think it's Venom. So yeah, I saw this once at Walmart, and I thought, you know what? They had like 3 or 4 of them, and I was like, I'll wait. This isn't something I need. But then after that one time, I never saw it again. And months had gone by, and I was kind of like, maybe I should have grabbed it. Anyway, I was on vacation like a weekend or 2 ago, and I was in the province of PEI, and I found this figure again. They had one on the Walmart shelf there, and I thought, what the hell? Plus, he was even on sale. He was $10 off, so that seemed justifiable. So this is Venomized Captain America. Now, just to quickly, for some comparison purposes, here's Captain America. So you can see the star, the chainmail. So that's where those design elements come in. This is my default cap on my shelf. This is my favorite Captain America right now. The only problem with this figure, it's a few years old, and he's kind of short. Especially if I put him next to this guy. This guy's, you know, almost a head taller. And then if I bring up my Venom, this is also kind of like my default Venom. You know, he's maybe slightly taller than this guy. So if this figure is supposed to be a combination of this guy and this guy, I guess it makes sense that he'd be about mid-height between them, but I don't know. I wish my Captain America was a little taller. But anyway, there you go. There's Venomized Cap. Now this here is another stray. It's not really from any particular wave of figures. I believe this was a Walgreens exclusive in the US. Up here in Canada, I was able to get it at EB Games. But this here is the Silver Surfer, although I think this figure, I don't know exactly what they named it, I forget now, but it's basically the Obsidian Silver Surfer. So you might be wondering, well, what's different about him? He's darker. I wouldn't say he's black. I was kind of expecting him to be black, but really he's just like a darker, he's a dark gray. So he's got his dark gray surfboard. You know, he's basically just a shimmery naked guy, colored dark gray. And then for accessories, I'm not sure. I think he might have come with, I've got some of these like energy beams sitting around that kind of fit on their hands. I'm not 100% sure if these came with him or not. They may have. I've got a few of them. I've also got these yellow ones, but I think they came with Quasar. Anyway, those purple ones might have come with him. They might have come with somebody else. I forget at this point because I've had this figure for a little while now. But the other major accessory you'll notice is the hammer of Thor. And so this is pretty cool. It's got that inscription on there, and you can actually like read it. It's, you know, put in there really well. And yeah, if you're wondering why there's a black Silver Surfer, I was thinking that this figure was from the most recent Silver Surfer series, in which case he went into some weird time travel thing, and he ran into Null, which is like basically the god of the Venom symbiotes, and he got turned black. So when I knew they made this figure, I thought that's what it was relating to. Although when I read the packaging on this guy, I think it referenced his battle with King Thanos. And that got me thinking, oh, is this figure actually related to the story that took place in the Thanos comic book, where Thanos was like the only thing alive at the end of time, and Silver Surfer had to come and fight him. I read that a while ago, so I don't really remember the details, but maybe Silver Surfer was black in that too. Anyway, Silver Surfer's been black at least once, and this figure represents one of those stories. Now, if you're curious about how he looks when compared to the other Silver Surfer, here he is. So you can see this guy is much darker than this guy. Now, if you were only going to have one Silver Surfer in your collection, I would still very much recommend you get this guy. I think he's much cooler and much more silver. But this guy was kind of hard to find too. This was also, I think, a Walgreens exclusive. So if you aren't able to find him, I think this guy is pretty good. And you don't even really notice how dark he is unless you have this guy to compare him to. I think if you had this guy on your shelf, just that, like, yeah, it's kind of dark for Silver Surfer, but, you know, it's not bad. So yeah, it's a pretty cool figure. That's not one you need if you've got the other one necessarily, but I am a huge Silver Surfer fan, and it's kind of hard to get Silver Surfer variants. So yeah, I grabbed him. Now, speaking of Thanos, here is the latest Thanos figure. So this guy was released, again, not as any particular wave of figures. He was kind of a standalone release, and he was like a deluxe figure, I guess they call them. So he comes in a larger package, partly because he's a larger figure, and he also had a few extra accessories. And yeah, so instead of being like $30 in Canada, like the usual figures are, this guy was like $45. And even though Thanos has long been one of my favorite characters since I was a kid, I wasn't sure if I was going to get this guy, so I kind of sat on him for a little while. I think it's an amazing figure. And let's get up close to him here. So you see there, he's got that kind of maniacal laughing face there. Looks great. You can see he's got the Infinity Gauntlet on his hand here. He's got a good scolding, pointing hand going there. I love like the big, thick stance of this guy. This is a solid figure. You know, like if we bring in, let me see, let me bring Daredevil back in here for a second. Like you can see compared to a standard Marvel Legends, just how big Thanos is. Like he looks like he would be a Build-A-Figure because he's just so big and hefty. So I understand why they charged a premium price for this guy. But anyway, the reason why I almost didn't buy him is because I was pretty happy with the Thanos I already had on my shelf. So this is a Marvel Legends Thanos that came out a couple of years ago. This is, I believe this was a Walmart exclusive. Now, if we get up close here, so he's got kind of a mean face. I think he also had like an alternate laughing face or something too. I can't remember. But like the colors are nice and metallic. I really love that head sculpt. He's a pretty big and bulky figure too. You know, he's not as big as this guy, but he's pretty close. Now, sure, his costume design is a little more contemporary. Like you see kind of these metallic sections showing through these gray parts. You know, he's got these kind of weird things on his knuckles. There's some extra kind of piping here on his sleeves. But it's all kind of minor. Basically, as long as he's gold and blue and he's got the shoulder pads, I don't really mind if they tweak the design a little bit. However, this is the classic Thanos design that I grew up on. That's the costume he had during the Thanos quest. That's what he wore during the original Infinity Gauntlet. So I definitely love this simpler design as opposed to this one, which is a little busier. But I also had this figure in my collection. Now, this isn't a Marvel Legend. This is from Marvel Select. That's made by Diamond Select Toys. But this is Thanos in his classic Infinity Gauntlet outfit. So he's like the same as this guy. Now, this figure is several years old. And he's very big. Marvel Select figures in general are bigger than Marvel Legends. But it never really bothered me with Thanos because he's a bigger guy. So he actually looked in scale with other Marvel Legends. I thought maybe a little big. But depending on who's drawing Thanos at any given time, he has been quite large at times. So yeah, I thought this was a really solid figure. And before I got him, this is the one that I kind of displayed with all my Marvel Legends as my default Thanos. So he's very cool, classic costume. This guy, the scale is a little bit more appropriate. So that's why I wasn't sure if I really wanted to spend $45 to get a new version. However, I'm glad that I did because I think this guy trumps both of them. Those are both good figures. But this guy here is just everything I want, and it's done really well. Like, I think the colors on this guy are better than this one. I never loved how this guy had this weird red paint around his eyes and stuff. Didn't love that. This guy here, the techiness of the costume didn't really bother me as much, but I hated how this thing just kind of floated around. Like, it never moved right. If you lifted his arm up to pose, then the thing came up weird on his neck. It was just weird. we'll get him out of here for now, and we'll focus on this guy. But this here, the neck piece is attached. It's not floating around. So you can get good poses with him, and it doesn't go anywhere. He's the right size. He's the right colors. He's just great. Anyway, for extra pieces, he came with another Infinity Gauntlet with kind of an open hand. So when he's, speechifying or whatever, you can hold out his hand there. He's also got a fist for that hand that doesn't have the Infinity Gauntlet. So if you wanted to reenact Thanos' quest or something when he has his glove on before he gets all the Infinity Stones, then you could do that too, which is pretty cool. And then he had, I think he might have even had 2 alternate heads, maybe not. But anyway, this is an alternate head he came with, which is the King Thanos head. So you can see here he's old with his gray beard, he's got this crown on. And I think this is the one from that storyline with the Black Silver Surfer, where it was at the end of time and Thanos had grown old and conquered the universe. And yeah, it's a really good story if you haven't read Thanos. So yeah, go check it out. I'm definitely not moving as fast as I should be, so I'm going to have to try and pick it up here. But anyway, this next figure I got is Red Star. Now this figure is actually several years old. This figure came out pretty much right before I started collecting Marvel Legends. I was collecting the Marvel Universe figures, which were the 3 3/4 inch figures. And I'd been seeing that the 6-inch Marvel Legends figures were getting a lot better. And I was also seeing that the Universe line was winding down and getting worse. So I was considering making the switch. So there was a couple figures in that wave that I didn't get. And then I started collecting Marvel Legends pretty much the next wave of figures that came out. And I regretted not getting this guy. This guy here, I've never been a huge Red Guardian fan per se, but he's just, he's a unique character. I like adding unique characters rather than just buying different Spider-Man and different Iron Man all the time. So yeah, it was kind of a shame not to get him, especially because he's kind of seen a surge in popularity. He was recently featured in the Black Widow movie, and I do have this movie version of him already. So at least I had a Red Guardian in my collection, but I really wanted the comic book version. And just the other day, I was at a comic book shop and they had him used for $14. Now he doesn't have his shield, but I guess if I really wanted to, I could steal his shield from him. Anyway, so it was pretty cool to finally get this guy and to get him, for cheap. And the timing was perfect because more members of his team, the Winter Guard, are just starting to trickle out now. So speaking of the Winter Guard, here is Darkstar. So she is also a member of the Soviet superhero / supervillain team, I guess, depending on how you look at them. So the Winter Guard has been around a long time, but I'm not really an expert on them. I don't even know exactly what Darkstar's powers are. I think she flies. I think she shoots energy from her hands. I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but whatever. These are just characters, again, like Red Guardian. I didn't have a huge attachment to. I wasn't really feeling like I needed them in my collection. But it is cool that they're coming out now. These characters, I don't remember reading any storylines with them in it that was like super memorable and prominent. But I am currently reading Jason Aaron's run on Avengers. And the Winter Guard is playing into that quite a bit. So who knows? I'm just now starting to get to know these characters. And so it's pretty cool now that I guess they're making figures of them. So yeah, Darkstar's... This is a pretty basic figure. Like, her costume is pretty straightforward. There's hardly any sculpted detail. Like, the only real design element is this star on the front, and that's just painted on. So this body here, this is the kind of body they probably used a million times. It could have been used for Spider-Woman or Silver Sable or I don't know who else. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward woman's body. But the proportions are all right and everything, so sure, why not? What more do you really need for this character? The head sculpt is what really counts, I guess. And it's a pretty nice head sculpt. I really like those creepy yellow eyes that she has. One thing that's kind of weird is these red spots in her hair. I don't know if that's consistent or if that's just mine. But yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know what that's all about. I don't think that's intentional. It definitely doesn't look like it's supposed to be there. Now for accessories, she just came with a bunch of extra hands. So you can have her with gripping hands or punching hands. And the other thing she came with was one of the Build-A-Figure parts. And she came with a really big Build-A-Figure part. She came with the torso of her teammate, Ursa Major. And so I don't have the rest of the parts of that character yet. All I have is his torso. and I also have his head, which came with the next figure I'm going to show you. But he's off to a pretty good start. Here is Ursa Major. So another member of the Winter Guard team. So he is like a bear, man. So I still need 4 more characters to get his 2 arms and 2 legs. And he's going to be a pretty big character. Probably going to stand about this tall when all is said and done. But yeah, once I get him, I'm going to have Ursa Major, Darkstar, Red Guardian, and also the Crimson Dynamo. So I'm starting to build myself a nice little Winter Guard team. So the other figure I have from that Ursa Major Build-A-Figure wave is Hologram Iron Man. Now this is a cool figure. He's translucent blue, meaning that you can see through him everywhere. So you can see all the inner workings and how everything connects to one another inside, which is pretty neat. I do think translucent figures are pretty cool. However, Hologram Iron Man is not something I really needed in my collection. And for $30, it's not something I probably would have even bought. But again, I got to get those Build-A-Figure parts. I really wanted to complete Ursa Major. So yeah, I had to buy the whole wave. I pre-ordered all of the figures in that wave. I'm not sure why they're just trickling in rather than all being delivered in one swoop. But anyway, that's what I've got. So I've got Hologram Iron Man and Darkstar. Now this guy, other than being translucent, he does have some paint apps. You can see these white lines here which bring out some of the detail. I'm not sure if this mold is just exactly the same as previous released Iron Man figures. I'm not sure. Like, it looks like it's kind of one of the more modern, techie Iron Man figures, perhaps even one of the movie figures. Whereas I like kind of a more simple comic book designed Iron Man. So for example, here's like my Silver Centurion Iron Man. You know, I've got this mold a few times in a few different colors. I like this classic comic book look. Whereas this guy here, it's hard to tell. This might be a comic book figure, it might be a movie figure. Regardless, I actually don't really have any contemporary Iron Man figures, so I am kind of glad they didn't just take this figure and make it translucent. It's kind of nice to get something a little different. And yeah, he's cool. Now for accessories, he's got 2 sets of hands. So you see I've got him with a fist in this hand and an open palm in this hand. So you can have 2 fists or 2 open palms, whichever you prefer. And the open palms have little holes for these repulsor rays. So you can just plug those in there like so. And they're made of a darker translucent blue. So yeah, pretty cool figure. Looks kind of cool when the light shines through them. You know, pretty nifty. So there you go. Here's Hologram Iron Man. This is Baron Zemo from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So he first appeared in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, or was it Civil War? I think Civil War. Anyway, regardless, he really kind of got expanded upon in the Falcon and Winter Soldier Disney Plus series recently. So this figure is based on his look from that series. Now, I do have a few MCU figures in my collection, but I do prefer the comic book looks. If I get a chance to get that comic book Baron Zemo, I will definitely grab it. But for now, this will do, because I really did like this, like his portrayal of Baron Zemo in the show. So here he is. He's got his like fur-lined coat, which is pretty classic Zemo. He's got his purple suit on underneath. He's got purple gloves. So, you know, there's definitely elements of Zemo here. It's not quite as flamboyant as the comic book version would be, but it looks pretty good, especially for an MCU figure. And yeah, the actor likeness, I forget, I say maybe Dennis Brule, something like that. Anyway, the actor's likeness is pretty good. Looks quite a bit like him. It's recognizable as him for sure. Now, as much as I wanted this character to put his mask on in the show, he actually did eventually put it on, which was cool because it gave them an opportunity to give him an alternate head with the mask on. But to be honest, it didn't really make sense to me why he put the mask on. You know, he just kind of pulled it out of his pocket and put it on for like one quick scene and then took it off again. And it just seemed like fan service to say, let's put this guy in his mask. But yeah, it didn't make sense why he put the mask on. At least I don't think so. But there he is with his mask. So it's pretty cool, and this is how I will display him on my shelf. He also has a couple alternate hands. So he's got, see, a pointing hand here. I am a fan of the pointing hands here. It's like Cobra Commander from the G.I. Joe Classified line recently came with one of these hands. And yeah, just looks like he's being very authoritative there, making demands. And then you can also take his other fist out, and he's got this gripping hand. So in that hand, you can either give him his little James Bond-esque golden gun, or you can give him his like notebook with the Winter Soldier codes in it, so he can try to mind control the Winter Soldier. So some cool accessories there, and a cool looking figure. So I'm happy to add Baron Zemo to my collection. So next up, I'm going to take a look at another exclusive figure. So there was not a full wave of figures with She-Hulk. I think she was a Walgreens exclusive, and so that means she was only available here in Canada at EB Games. And yeah, this is a great She-Hulk figure. Lots of nice detail in the face, and you know, all the ripped jeans and stuff. Looks really good. I like it a lot. The only thing that kind of diminishes my love of this figure is I got the exact figure last year in this gray look, and I really loved this figure. When I first got this one, I was like, wow, this is an incredible sculpt for She-Hulk. There's so much expression in her face. Like, she looks mean and angry, and yet it's still like an attractive sculpt. The detail of like these rips in the clothes and stuff, like it looks like the layering of it, like it all works really well. It's just really well put together, the texture in the jeans. This figure I liked so much that it made my best of list last year. So yeah, I love it. So it makes sense that they would re-release it in green, because this gray look with the green scars was very short-lived for She-Hulk, and she's most known for this green look. So a lot of people probably prefer this one. Me, however, I kind of like this look for She-Hulk. I think it's really cool. But if they're going to give us a green She-Hulk, I would have rather them give her the outfit she wears with that. Like when She-Hulk was first introduced and she was known as the Savage She-Hulk, she had torn clothes and stuff like that, but her face didn't really look like this. This is more of a contemporary face sculpt. So if they're going to give us a contemporary face sculpt, I'd rather a contemporary costume, and she usually wears kind of a purple, like bikini, like bathing suit type of costume, like tights. She doesn't walk around in torn clothes the way, you know, regular Hulk does. So yeah, I wish. This seemed almost like a little bit of a cop-out. They made this figure, so like, why don't we just paint that green, since people want a green She-Hulk? But now people are just going to want, they're going to want a better green She-Hulk in her purple like bathing suit costume. So we'll probably get that eventually, and I'll end up buying that one too. Anyway, it is a nice figure. She came with a couple of extra hands, so if you want her to have open hands instead of fists. And she also came with an alternate head sculpt. So this one is much more neutral. And honestly, I thought for sure when I got this figure, I would display her with this head, because I already have this figure with this head, and she only had the one option. She just had the one head. So just to make them a little more different on the shelf, I thought, well, yeah, I'll display it with this one, and they don't look so similar. But I don't know. I like this head sculpt, but it's almost like it's too neutral. Like she looks like she's kind of daydreaming or something. And I think I just like this head sculpt better. It's just so much more dynamic with the hair flowing and the teeth and the furrowed brow and stuff. So yeah, as nice as this head sculpt is, I think I'm going to keep her on my shelf with this one. But anyway, there you go. So that's She-Hulk. Next up is another Walgreens exclusive. This is Quasar. So in America, you can only get him at Walgreens. In Canada, EB Games. And yeah, it's been a long time coming for Quasar. I think he had one figure in the 3 3/4 inch line, but it was a totally different costume, kind of a more contemporary costume. This is not my favorite costume for Quasar, but considering it's the first 6-inch figure we've ever had of him, you know, I'll take it. And it's pretty close. I do like this look. Quasar doesn't have a great costume in general. Like kind of a red t-shirt, blue tights, red boots. Like it's a little lacking. You know, even just his character in general. His hair is, you know, pretty unassuming. You know, he's kind of a plain guy, especially for somebody who's so big and powerful and cosmic in the Marvel Universe. It's a kind of an underwhelming design. But I like Quasar. When this character, I first kind of became aware of him when he got his first ever, his own comic book series, and that came out in like the 80s, maybe the early 90s, I can't remember exactly, but when me and my brother Doug were kids and we were collecting Marvel Universe comic books together, Quasar came out right around the same time as a bunch of other new comic books, like with new characters, like we got Darkhawk and Sleepwalker, the Guardians of the Galaxy. So I collected all those, and Doug collected the New Warriors, and he collected Quasar. So yeah, Quasar, he really liked. Like, even though he's not the coolest looking superhero, the book was really good. Yeah, he really enjoyed it, and so did I. And to this day, Quasar, I think, is my brother's, if not his favorite Marvel character. He's like definitely in his top 5. And yeah, I don't like him that much, but I think he's cool. And I'm glad that we finally got him to add to my Marvel Legends shelf. So yeah, he's got these quantum bands, which were kind of given to him by this cosmic entity, Eon. And yeah, he's got, you know, he's a powerful dude who uses like quantum energy to blast people, and he flies through space, and yeah, he's pretty cool. And he has had multiple costume designs over the years. Even though it's really corny, I kind of wish we got his original like 80s, early 90s design where he wore this like kind of sweatband on his head and stuff. It was really kind of cheesy, but that's the look I associate with Quasar. But yeah, this look, I don't think this is what he wears now. I think this is somewhere in between the classic and the modern, but anyway, whatever. For accessories, he came with these 2 blast effects. So you can put those on his hand so he can punch with some cosmic energy. And he also came with 2 flying hands here. So yeah, the energy balls and these flying hands. So if you want to have him soaring through the air like Superman, you can do that. So yeah, pretty cool figure. Glad that we finally got Quasar. Now, like the Red Guardian figure I showed you, this is another figure that's been out for quite some time. Maybe it's been, you know, maybe even 2 years when this figure first came out. And it was one I definitely considered picking up at the time, but ultimately passed on it. So this character is Mach I. He's a member of the Thunderbolts team. And if you're not familiar with the Thunderbolts, they've had many iterations since the first one, but Mach I was part of the original team. So basically, there was a time in, again, I want to say the 90s, when the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, you know, Captain America, Iron Man, all those guys, they supposedly died. I think it was when they were fighting Onslaught. And really what happened is they got put to an alternate universe, but the world at large thought they were dead. So then this new super team, the Thunderbolts, rose up to kind of take their place and fill the gap. And, you know, everybody was happy for these new superheroes. But then there was this big twist at the end of the first issue when we learned that these new superheroes, who we had never seen before, were actually supervillains in disguise who were plotting to use their new identities in some big plot to gain, you know, trust. And then they were going to, you know, rip everybody off or whatever their master plan was. So they were actually led by Baron Zemo. And this guy here was the Beetle. So Beetle, you know, he's fought lots of Marvel guys. I associate him with Spider-Man. And I love the Beetle. I love the costume design. It's pretty simple, but that helmet is just really cool. So I love the Beetle. There you go. So I already had this figure. So knowing that Mach 1 is the same character, that makes him kind of less important to get. You know, this guy's name is Abner Jenkins under the armor. And I already have an Abner figure. So even though this is a cool new look, it's totally different. Knowing that it was the same guy made it a little less important. And when I first saw the figure, I just really didn't like this white on him. Like, it looks so plasticky. I don't know why they didn't use a different type of white. Like the blue, it's got this nice metallic-y blue paint job, which looks metallic, but then this clearly looks plastic. I feel they could have painted this in some way so it didn't look so flat. And I just didn't like it, so I passed on this figure for quite some time. But it was always in the back of my mind that maybe I'll try and pick it up one day. Anyway, so when I was on vacation in PEI there the other week, I found this figure. He was marked down to half price, so I got him for like 15 bucks. And it seemed like a good time to finally add him to my collection. So not only is he a character that I like, but they have slowly been building the original Thunderbolts team. And so I have here Songbird. So this is her superhero identity. She was originally the villain Screaming Mimi. And then here is Citizen V, and this was Baron Zemo's superhero identity. So there's still a couple members missing. I assume that we might get them eventually. But yeah, it's pretty cool to expand on any of these teams. There's so many teams that are kind of incomplete in Marvel Legends. So yeah, it's nice to add another one to the mix. So there you go. That is Mach I. Next up, I've got Jocasta. So this is like a member of the Avengers team. She was kind of a character that was around a lot in the 80s, but I wasn't really reading the Avengers book at that time. I was just kind of familiar with her. She was never a character that really excited me, though. She was an android chick, and her design is, I find, rather plain. Like, she's just, a silver woman with some detailing. Like, why would she have this weird little riveted cuff around one leg? I don't know what the point of that is. Then she's got this kind of like bikini design, which is a little weird. Like, I almost think it would be better if it was just solid gray here. The fact that they gave her that weird thing that looks like it's almost like underwear, you're like, well, that's very skimpy underwear. That just makes it seem almost obscene. It's just a weird design. I don't love the look of her hair. It's true to the comic books, but it's a character I never really cared for her look, and I really don't know a whole lot about her. I never really read any comic books where she impressed me or anything. So yeah, she was just one of those characters that came out, and I didn't really care to get her figure. The only reason why I would maybe buy this figure is simply to expand on my Marvel Universe. Because, again, when I collect these toys, I think back to, wouldn't it be neat if I played with these toys as a kid? And as a kid, I would like to have as many characters as possible. It just expands, your play value. So I kind of thought, if I ever see Jocasta, on a discount, I'd pick it up. So I passed on her. This figure came out a while ago. I found it discounted, and I picked it up. And it's okay. It didn't really win me over. It didn't change my mind. It's a pretty average figure, pretty basic design. For accessories, she came with some alternate hands, so you can display her with open hands. But the bulk of her package was taken up by the Build-A-Figure piece. She's part of a wave that builds Mr. Fix-It, which is one of the Hulk's kind of altered personalities. And so she came with his torso, so that was a pretty big piece. So anyway, there you go. There's Jocasta. Now, I just want to quickly talk about this figure here. This is Heimdall. This is from the Thor movies. I think this figure came from the Ragnarok wave of figures, so it's a couple of years old. It's one that I passed on, but I was always on the fence about it because, Idris Elba played Heimdall in the movies, and this figure looks great. Like, look at that face sculpt. That's incredible. Although, I am noticing there's a lot of black schmutz on there. But anyway, the detailing on the face looks great. The paint job and the eyes and everything, it definitely looks like Idris Elba. The costume, it's kind of hard to make out his costume because he's got this cloak on. But, it's pretty plain brown outfit. He's got this giant sword, which is cool. The cloak, which I kind of like the hood and stuff on there. But, the reason I passed on this is, as I mentioned, I'm not really collecting the MCU, like the live action movie figures. I love the movies, but I prefer the comic book looks. When it comes to Heimdall, I would much prefer his comic book look, but I don't know if they're going to make that anytime soon. So it's either don't have a Heimdall or add the movie version to my shelf. So I considered buying him at the time. I didn't get him, but I found him on sale recently, just literally the other day. So I picked him up, and he's pretty cool. So there you go. There's Heimdall. So next up, I just quickly want to talk about this Jackolantern figure. Now, this is a bit of an oddity for me because this figure is legit years old. This came out, I'm not even sure, this might be a Hasbro figure, basically before Marvel Legends were good, or this might even go back into the Toy Biz years when a whole different company was producing Marvel Legends. And figures like this are part of the reason why I didn't like Marvel Legends back in the day. I just find them, they're kind of gangly. I find they're too articulated in some ways. Like this guy, you'll notice, his wrist and his fingers are articulated. Sometimes his toes are articulated. I just found they were kind of goofy looking, and they focused more on articulation and less on look. Like, look at his legs, the way they come into that weird ball before they go into his kind of groin area. It's odd looking. It's hidden a little bit on this figure because of these pouches on the belt. But, I really didn't like the way these figures were designed. I don't know, I'm just kind of curious now if it says Hasbro or Toy Biz on here somewhere. Regardless, this is an old figure. I wasn't collecting these figures at the time. And Jackolantern, though, is one of my all-time favorite characters. I absolutely love this guy. And they have yet to make a Jackolantern that I want to see. They haven't made the perfect Jackolantern. They did make a Jackolantern in the current Marvel Legends figures a little while back. And here he is. And he's pretty cool. Like, this head is pretty much perfect. That's what I want my Jackolantern to look like. He shouldn't have a nose, and he should have the flames coming out. That's like the right proportion. It's a big pumpkin head and everything. That's what I want Jackolantern to look like. But this body they gave him, that's not the Jackolantern that I want. This is kind of a more contemporary one. He's got this, flaming broomstick. That's not what I want. I want him to have his kind of disc that he jumped around on in the 80s. Anyway, they haven't made that figure yet. So when I was in a comic shop the other day, when I was buying Heimdall and Red Guardian and stuff, they had a whole cabinet full of loose figures, and I saw this Jackolantern figure, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to grab him too. He's one of my favorite characters, and his Jackolantern's actually been featured in the Spider-Man comic books lately, and I don't know what the deal is with them exactly, but there's like a whole bunch of them. Somebody's using them as henchmen. So I kind of thought, you know what, that makes them even more justifiable to put them on my shelf, because there's multiple Jackolanterns these days, so I could display these guys together. It's not a great figure, but the fact that he's wearing his green kind of chainmail, it's a little closer in the costume than what I'd want to see, better than this anyway. So anyway, hopefully we get the perfect Jackolantern someday, but for now I thought I'd pick this guy up. Next up, we're going to take a look at Jean Grey. I've gone way over time. I definitely talked more than 2 minutes for each of these figures. I apologize. I hope you're still with me. This is a longer video than I wanted, but we're almost done. Anyway, so this is Jean Grey. This is from a recent line of X-Men figures that was kind of based on the contemporary books, kind of the whole House of X thing that's going on right now, where all of the mutants live together on the island of Krakoa. So the good guys and the bad guys are working together and all that stuff. I don't know a whole lot about it. I haven't really read any of it. I like the X-Men, but they're just way too complicated for me to keep up with. I actually intended to read the relaunched book when House of X came out, but before they could even read I usually like collected editions, so I usually wait for the trade paperback to come out. But by the time the trade paperback had come out, they'd already released so many side stories. It looked so complicated that it just scared me right off. So I'm not even going to bother. But anyway, there was a time when I was a kid that I did read a lot of X-Men comic books. And I do have a fondness for some of the characters. Jean Grey is actually one of my favorite X-Men. And I hadn't had a Marvel Legends figure of Jean Grey. They've put out plenty of them. But yeah, none of them. I managed to avoid all of them. And so, yeah, I really wanted a Jean Grey, and I was pretty happy when I saw that they put this figure out. It is, I guess this is the look that she's wearing now, but it's also very close to a look that she had, like way back in probably the 60s or 70s or whatever. And I do like this look. I like her wearing green and yellow. Those are the colors that I associate with Jean Grey, or Marvel Girl, if you will. And yeah, I kind of like this look of the skirt and the boots. It's kind of a cute, classic look. I dig it. Now, one thing I don't like about this figure is it seems kind of lazy with the boots here. Like, you can see she's clearly got these sculpted, kind of cuffs on her gloves. But with her boots, like, it's just a line of paint on her calf. And I wish they had sculpted that. It just seems like a quick thing they could have done. Kind of lazy otherwise. But yeah, it's a nice head sculpt. So what did she come with? She came with a couple extra hands. So I've got her with her open hands, but she also has a couple of fists. She came with, I don't know, a flower. I'm sure this has something to do with the current storyline, but I don't know exactly what it is. And she came with a piece of the Tri-Sentinel, which is a Build-A-Figure that I will probably never complete because I'm not really interested in really any of the other figures from this particular wave. Now, there was one other figure from the recent X-Men line that I did pick up, and that was Moira MacTaggert. Now, she was a character that I considered buying. I thought, you know what, she's a character that I don't have on my shelf. As I've mentioned a couple times already, I like just adding new characters just for the diversity and to expand my Marvel Universe. But she was not a character that seems essential to me. I kind of just associate her as like kind of the doctor slash scientist that, and sometimes girlfriend of Professor X. I didn't think she was a mutant of her own, but I guess maybe she is. I don't know. Just from what I read on the packaging when I picked her up, it does sound like she's got some crazy mutant history. I don't really know what it all is. Anyway, I wasn't sure if I was going to buy her, but when I was on vacation in PEI the other day, I went to a little comic book shop. I try and support any little comic shop when I'm traveling like that, and I was looking around, and there was really nothing that I needed to buy. He didn't have anything super interesting, but he did have this wave of X-Men figures, and I thought, well, you know what? I was kind of considering buying Moira, so I'll buy it from him, even though it was more than I would have paid if I bought it, say, here at Walmart or something, but I just wanted to be supportive, so I picked up Moira. Now, you're looking at this figure, and you might be thinking, that's not Moira MacTaggert, and it's not. It partly is. It mostly is. But this is Mary Jane, Spider-Man's girlfriend, wife, or whatever you want to consider her. But the thing is, they did make a Mary Jane figure a while back as part of a 2-pack with Spider-Man, but I didn't buy that pack because I really didn't want to buy the extra Spider-Man. So therefore, I didn't have a Mary Jane in my collection. But they did recently put out this Gwen Stacy figure, and I thought it was pretty nice, so I bought this. And one of the accessories she came with was an extra head of Mary Jane, meaning that you could use this same kind of casually dressed female body for either Gwen or Mary Jane. Now, I associate the purple skirt, the long green jacket, that really is Gwen's look. So obviously I was going to display this figure as Gwen, but it seemed like a real shame to have this really nice Mary Jane Watson head and not have anything to do with it, because it's a really, really nice head. But when I got Moira, I thought, you know what? All right, she's falling over here. I thought, maybe instead of having Moira on my shelf, because, she's a fine character, but I'd rather have Mary Jane. So that's what I did here. So Mary Jane's head is on Moira's body. And you'll notice Moira's body is actually Gwen's body. She's wearing the same textured sweater, the same skirt with the slit on the side. So that's all the same. The feet are even the same. But see, they've done the same thing here they did with Jean, is that they just painted the boots on so they can use those same legs to do bare legs. So I understand why they do it, but it's still kind of cheap. I wish they had, taken the time to sculpt a line for the boots. But yeah, so these guys have the exact same body. And so that Mary Jane head fits on there perfectly because it was intended for this body anyway. But I will show you quickly. So you can pop this head off. And if you want to make her Moira, you can put this little neckerchief on her. And then she's got her head with her funky little hat on it. And yeah, you can give her science book here that she's got. And yeah, she's ready to go out on the town. Nice casual Moira. So that's pretty cool. But then what's really cool about this figure is you can pop this head off again. You pop these arms right out. This might take a second. So yeah, you pop her arms off. Then you push this lab coat on. And then she's got another set of arms with white sleeves. You pop those in there. Like so. And then she's got a whole nother head here with her glasses. So this is kind of a more science look instead of her casual look. So yeah, it's a really nice figure, and I like that they went through the trouble with not just the extra head, but the extra arms with the removable coat. It really allows you to have two completely different looks for Moira, which are both straight out of the comic books. So yeah, with all those looks, it's kind of a shame that I'm not going to have either version of Moira on my shelf because I'm going with Mary Jane. But, what are you going to do? I will also mention, just now I'm thinking about it, since I'm more of a Spider-Man guy, this head with the lab coat, she would actually make a pretty good Carly Cooper figure without even having to change anything. She looks a lot like another member of Spider-Man's supporting cast. So anyway, there you go. There's Moira. All right, we're almost done, I swear. So this here is the Civil Warrior. So this guy is basically Captain America mixed with Iron Man. He's based on a video game. And yeah, I don't know. That's about all I know with him. And he's pretty cool. Normally, I wouldn't necessarily buy a character that was just made for a video game that I have no attachment to myself. But yeah, this is just a really cool design. I like it a lot. And it's not just, like I've seen Captain America mixed with Iron Man before. You know, that's how we get characters like, you know, the Iron Patriot here. And, you know, as cool as this is, it's basically just Iron Man in different colors. But with Civil Warrior here, like, it's a really cool new design. Like, you can see elements of both guys in there, but it's totally unique and on its own. Now, before I say it's totally unique, I guess I should mention that this whole figure is just a repaint of the Hydra Supreme figure that we got a while back. And I'm not really sure what the relationship to these two figures are. If the video game based the look off Hydra Supreme, or if Hydra Supreme based the look off the video game. I'm not sure which one came first. Maybe these designs aren't really as close, because I know this is from the comic book, that's from the video game. Maybe they're similar enough that they painted them the same. I don't know if they're supposed to be the exact same. Regardless, I think they're both cool figures. I liked this figure enough, even though I didn't know a whole lot about the character, but I picked it up because I just thought it was a great looking design. And I think it looks even better in this color scheme. So there you go. That is Civil Warrior. Now with all the other figures, I've been showing you them in package kind of on a split screen. Because like I told you, I've been buying these figures over the course of a couple of months. So what I do is I shoot a little quick video of them in package, do a little turnaround, and then I open them up and wait to review them. With this figure here, the Death Dealer, I can show you it in package right here because I just bought this guy today. And this is the last figure I'm going to show you. So this is from the Shang-Chi wave of figures, based on the upcoming Shang-Chi movie. And yeah, this is the Death Dealer. Now, originally I thought this might be the only figure I buy out of this wave. You can see on the back here, there's 4 characters from the movie. So Shang-Chi, what's this, Wenwu and Xingling, Death Dealer, and then you got these 2 kind of oddities at the end. So you get a new version of Iron Man and then the Civil Warrior, which I just showed you. So I really want Mr. Hyde. Like, this guy's a cool character. So now I've got 5, I've got his head, and with 4 now this gives me one of his arms. But it's a shame that I really need all these characters to build it, because for one, I haven't seen the movie yet. Maybe after I see the movie I'll really want these guys. I probably won't want Shang-Chi regardless, because I already have a comic book version of Shang-Chi, which I prefer. But at least with these characters, I don't have them on my shelf in any way whatsoever, so at least they'd be new characters. But I really do wish that maybe if they're going to do these Build-A-Figures, they maybe stick with comic Build-A-Figures for comic waves of figures, and MCU figures, like Build-A-Figures for MCU waves. Just because I feel there's probably a lot of people that only collect one or the other. So there might be people that wanted all these figures, and then they get this weird character that has nothing to do with Shang-Chi, and they're like, what am I supposed to do with this guy? And vice versa. There's guys like me that want this dude, but we don't really want to buy the movie figures. Now with Death Dealer, he is a movie figure. I don't know much about him. I don't think I've ever read a comic book with him, partly because I've never read a Shang-Chi comic book, but it says he is one of his most formidable opponents. And yeah, so even though I don't know anything about this guy, he does look super cool. So there you go. You see him in the package. Let's quickly open him up and take a look. Okay, so here is the Death Dealer outside of the packaging. I'm laying my hands on him for the very first time. And yeah, he's cool. Again, as I said earlier, I don't know anything about this guy. For all I know, he could end up being another female character. They've kind of pulled that on us a couple times in the Marvel Universe. So yeah, I really don't know anything about this guy. But I really like, I assume that's a mask he's wearing underneath this mask. Maybe it's face paint or something, but I'm going to guess that's a mask. And yeah, he's got different textures on him. Like those are all sculpted, you know, in his sleeve. Oh, that's kind of interesting. It looks like he's almost maybe metallic under there. I don't know if that's armor, but who knows? Maybe he's a robot or something. Nobody knows, because this movie isn't out yet. And even if you are familiar with Death Dealer from the comic books, you know, you should know by now that that doesn't necessarily mean anything. They could definitely change something for the movie. Okay, he's got some little daggers. Those are sculpted in there, so those are not removable. Little ponytail on top of his head. Again, different texturing on the headdress as opposed to down here. Really cool. I like this guy a lot. I dig it. Now for accessories, he just came with a couple of extra hands. So I guess he throws those daggers that you see sculpted on his back. So he's got this one here ready to throw. And then he's got this hand here, which looks like he's already thrown and released a couple of daggers. So that's pretty cool. So let's just quickly see what that looks like if we pop this out. So there you go. That kind of gives you that idea. If he threw them with the motion, the blades are flying from his hands. So that's pretty cool. So as I mentioned, this is the last figure I had to show you, but I do want to quickly talk about Build-A-Figures for a second. So this guy came with an arm for Mr. Hyde. I already had the head for Mr. Hyde from Civil Warrior. And I recently bought Jocasta, which had the Mr. Fix-It, the body for Mr. Fix-It, which is that Hulk figure. I previously had a leg for Mr. Fix-It. So I don't know. I really don't want to get the other figures from those waves, but maybe if I buy one or two more figures, I can complete kind of this weird mishmash. Like I've got the green hat and the green sleeve. But yeah, I'm one leg and one arm short. So I don't know. Maybe he'll end up with blue pants and green sleeves, or one green sleeve and one blue sleeve. But that's the thing. When I get this close to Build-A-Figure, even if it's not perfect, it's just a shame to throw this figure in my spare parts bin as opposed to putting it on my shelf on display as a complete figure. So that's enough to get me to spend the $60 to buy two more figures just to get the leg and the arm. So whether I buy them from the Shang-Chi wave or the Mr. Fix-It wave, that remains to be seen. But I'll keep you posted on how this guy goes. And just as an update on a couple other Build-A-Figures, there is a comic store in my area that is selling Build-A-Figure pieces. It's usually selling arms and legs for $5 a piece and heads and torsos for $10 a piece. So with this guy here, this is the Kree Sentinel. I've had this guy on my shelf for a while and I was missing his arms. So I had him displayed with Hulk arms. They fit in there pretty good and they actually were pretty much to scale, but it looked weird. He had these two big green arms coming out of there. I was never super satisfied with it, but I really didn't want to buy the other figures I needed to get his arms. But I was able to pick up his arms for $5 a piece at the comic book store. So that's pretty cool. So I finally have a complete Kree Sentry. Another update. This guy here has been in my spare parts bin for a couple of years. I forget his name. I think it's Cull Obsidian. So yeah, this is one of Thanos' goons. And I did not buy all the figures I needed to build this guy. He was missing an arm and a leg for the longest time. And when he's missing arms and legs, I just can't display him on my shelf. I don't like having, incomplete characters like that. And I didn't have any other Build-A-Figure parts that really fit the bill. Anyway, I got one of the legs I needed for $5 the other day. And so, yeah, I figured, I guess I can finally display him. He's missing one arm, but so what? And I actually have this extra Caliban arm. It definitely doesn't look good, but it fits in the hole, so you can still hold his hammer. So this will do. Hopefully, I eventually find that other arm for sale somewhere. But it's nice to have this figure close to complete.
So there you go. You're all caught up on my Marvel Legends collection. That is a big help to me for me to do this video. So you guys have seen it. Thank you for watching. And now I can finally put all this shit away. And that will definitely kind of clear out a good portion of this mess I have around me. So thank you for watching. Please, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Please leave me comments below. I always appreciate that. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another video. Ciao.